Welcome back to the Tom and D podcast. I'm Tom Fry. Darren Abram here with me. Or actually, you're on this side. I can't tell. Anyway. But
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're doing another episode. I don't know who the guest is. Darren got this guest today, so we're going to be talking about that. My Detroit Tigers, I should say our Detroit Tigers, but since you don't have a hat anymore, you lost your hat.
Dude, no, you always give me shit about the hat. I actually have the hat at the ready. I'm supposed to have it on.
No way!
Tom and D. Now it's got new meaning for the D.
So I got to get a T hat for Tigers.
Tom and D.
Two middle-aged idiots.
It's so weird that I became a Detroit Tigers fan. Because, Indiana, that's where I grew up.
But they don't have a baseball team.
They don't have a baseball team. Right, exactly. And, I've been in Denver for a while. It's hard to get on board with the Rockies.
Well, the thing about baseball, unless you have a good team.
Here we go.
But it's like, the Rockies don't have problems selling tickets because people want to go to a game and have a beer and a hot dog, converse, probably watch their favorite team come into town where they grew up, maybe like the Yankees or the Tigers or the Dodgers, whomever. But something about going to a baseball game is just so much different than any other sport. But it really is a shame that the owner of the Rockies is just so cheap. He won't bring anybody in because people in this town love sports. They love their Broncos, their Nuggets, their Avalanche. But
the upside is that, tickets are so cheap. So you can get great seats for like next to nothing, I hear that if you pay an extra $20, you can actually pitch. Not too bad. So.
Yeah. They'll actually sign you to the team for that day if you pay an extra $20. You can shag balls out in the outfield. But also I wanted to mention this because we talked earlier about how you and I met at Indiana University, both big IU basketball fans. Now, those who don't follow Indiana may not know what's happened, but we fired our coach, Mike Woodson, who was a star from Indiana back in the day.
Yeah, we made him resign.
Well, they basically made him resign, but he was, one of the greatest players ever put on the cream and crimson, and it was an NBA coach. Didn't work out, and it just, our teams have just been pretty mediocre. But we've got this new coach who literally started from scratch, not a player on the roster, and right now he's built the fourth best portal recruiting class in the country. So we've got a lot of young players coming in.
Did he sign his son on the team too?
His son as well, who's awesome.
Right.
So good things happening in Bloomington. Yeah. So, when I move there soon, hopefully I'll have a Big Ten champion to talk about. But we're going to talk about who you brought in today, and I'm very curious to find out.
Okay, to kind of lean in here and somehow kind of make a segue, I was thinking about this, and, as creatives, we always have this creative approach to what we do. And, we have to create interesting dialogue, and, we have to create interesting visuals, hopefully all of the above, and entertain. There's also oftentimes a creative approach to deal making and to setting up the expectations for all of the stakeholders.
Right.
And this man, he has a creative approach to his law. As a matter of fact, even named his firm, hopefully I get this right, the Creative Law Network. He's been my attorney for many, many times. I'm so excited to have him on for a number of reasons, and not just because
you want to sue me.
Well, no, it's the first time I've been able to talk to him without having to sign to have a retainer.
Yeah, you may be charging me by the hour just to see how he's doing. Just to call him to see how he's doing, it ends up costing you $200.
Right.
But does he handle slip and falls? We're going to ask him about that as well because
Not this guy. No, but. And one of the first questions I want to ask. Well, no, we'll get into that in a minute. I just want to bring him on, Dave Ratner. He is the preeminent lawyer in entertainment, as far as I'm concerned. Dave, welcome to the show. Just one second. Let me reach over here and got this way out of my reach.
There he is. Do we have your audio, or did we lose your audio again?
It turned me off. Now I'm back.
There you go. I have a question right off the bat.
Oh my
Most
God.
people when they're interested in becoming a lawyer, law intrigues them, or maybe they're interested in becoming a litigator because they've watched TV shows and they want to.
Oh,
Right.
by the way, just to interject, sorry, my daughter just took the LSATs. There you go.
Uh-oh.
Well, there you go. See, so people have this idea from watching TV shows, Law and Order, whatever. Like, I want to be a lawyer, but to choose a niche or a niche like you have, entertainment. Did you always have like an entertaining bug and kind of thought this is people that I'd like to work with are more creative types than accountants and people like? I mean, tell me how did you choose entertainment law?
I had no interest in ever becoming a lawyer. It never occurred to me. I don't have lawyers in my family. This is not something I ever thought about doing. I didn't go to law school until I was 30. And
Wow,
the reason, I know, old, right? I mean, I can tell you guys are barely 30.
barely.
And actually, I was working in the music business. So I started off in the music world as basically a roadie for a band.
Nice.
Was on the road for years. I became a tour manager. Eventually, I became a band manager, and I started a management company. And I was managing bands and running the business for all these artists, and realized that all these artists need a lawyer. And so that is how I ended up going to law school.
Any
So it
any,
certainly
any
was the
bands that
plan.
we've heard of, or can you not talk about that?
The band that I was on the road with is a band called the Motet, and they are still out there on the road doing it today. So
Right.
they
Awesome.
have it is not easy being out on the road, but a lot of
No,
these guys do it, and they are still doing it.
that's awesome.
They are
Are you
and they
there?
are
Are you their
fantastic.
lawyer? Are you their lawyer though? That's the thing.
I mean, why wouldn't I be? Right? They're still good
Right.
friends. They're
That's
still good
That's
awesome.
great.
friends. Yeah.
So, do you play any instruments? Are you musical?
I used to when I was on the road. People would ask me. I said I play manager.
There you
That
go.
was my
Right.
role. But I
Okay.
can I can drive a 43-foot bus. I've been in
Yeah.
all 50 states,
Nice.
and I've learned a lot about the music industry before ever going to law school.
Right.
Yeah,
That's great. So, I
yeah.
got a question about I've talked to you many times, but never about the name of your firm. Did I get that right? Creative Law Network?
That's correct. Creative Law Network.
Okay. So, creative law, when you first hear it,
Mhm.
if maybe people if they're not creatives or never hired a lawyer for creative needs, that might sound like an oxymoron. So if you could explain that to these two oxymorons, that would be awesome to hopefully help us understand why that's not, so detached.
Well, I mean, I think it is one thing is the name of the law firm is really focused on who we serve, right? Because we're
Right.
working with creative people and businesses. Creative law is not a type of law, right?
Right.
Like contract law or personal injury law or something like that. But we're working with creative people and with creative businesses is what we do. And the type of laws, I mean, a lot of what we do is intellectual property law. It's a lot of copyrights and trademarks and protecting people's creative works. And it's a lot of contract. It's a lot of business law. I used to always, when I started this on the music side, because now obviously, when I started on the music side, I always think that a band is a business, right? But so is a film project is a business, or a TV series is a business, or a visual artist is running a business, painting or sculpting or whatever. These are all business ventures, even though they are creative in nature. And so creative law is really law for creative people and for creative businesses.
It's interesting because I'm a voice actor by trade. That's what I do some on camera stuff. I mean, Darren's hired me a few times and I've done some things over the years, but voice acting is pretty much. And I never thought, would I ever need any kind of legal help in this? But with the AI thing now, I mean, I'm sure you've heard these stories where someone records their voice for something and next thing you know, they make a duplicate and a job, and all of a sudden you hear your voice. I mean, I've heard nightmare stories about this couple they were in New York and they said, we started hearing our voice on commercials and we're like, we didn't get paid for this. So obviously they probably reached out to someone like you. Have you had to deal with AI at all yet this early in the AI game?
Oh, absolutely. It's everywhere. It is amazing. It took us a whole 2 minutes to get to it
Oh,
Right.
in
Right.
this conversation because
I'm
it is the
actually
most
not here.
common.
I'm just sitting somewhere else. This is my avatar. This is just my avatar
Right,
talking to you.
right. Yes, it is an unavoidable part of our world, obviously, and it's affecting everybody differently depending on where you are in the industry. part of it from the lawyer's perspective is where it starts is what is susceptible for copyright? What can we protect? Because the Copyright Office has told us that if AI creates a painting or a song or something, it's not protected by copyright. Because the Copyright Office has told us it has to be human created. And then there's a whole conversation of, well, but humans give us the prompts for the AI that creates this thing. So where is that line? And that is still being decided. There's a lot of lawsuits going on about AI. None of them have really given us much direction yet. So we have a lot of questions in the legal world around AI. We have a lot of questions without a lot of definitive answers yet.
Because AI actually draws from existing information.
This is
so I
problem,
think that's
right?
A suit from the New York Times right now about where they get that intellectual property. It's coming from the sources.
Right, exactly. I mean, the thing is that generative AI is obviously, as you just said, is based on billions and billions of pieces of data that are generally copyright protected works. So the New York Times example is a great one where the New York Times owns the copyrights in these articles or in the photos that are in these articles, right? And if you own a copyright, that means you own the exclusive right to reproduce that work, to distribute that work, to create derivatives of that work. And so the New York Times is saying, we own all these copyrights, and yet this generative AI is reproducing and duplicating our copyrights, is manipulating and exploiting our copyrights in order to generate whatever output it is. And that is true ChatGPT is probably the most common thing that most people use. And yet ChatGPT has ingested billions and billions of pieces of information. And a lot of that information is copyright protected. So why are not all those copyright owners getting paid for their work? That's the general argument that's being made in a lot of
But it does change it. I mean, if you type into ChatGPT, whatever it is,
GPT.
Sure, what?
But it changes it. But here's the thing: you can go to ChatGPT and say, "Write me a New York Times article about whatever event it is." Say, the stock market change on Friday, April 18th.
Hold on, my door's ringing. I know this is kind of weird, but
oh my God, we are such professionals here that we make sure our studio is closed. With complete control.
My dog is asleep right now. Otherwise, she'd be barking. But should we wait?
You know who that was?
Who?
That
wasn't AI.
Okay, now perfect example. I made a joke about the strong arm, being drunk because he had a DUI at one point. Could he sue me then if he heard this?
For defamation.
And would you represent
No, because you're just representing, you're just retelling a fact, okay. Right? There's no copyright protection in fact.
I see.
But the thing about the AI is just that you can, like I said, you could go say, write me a New York Times article, and it'll use the New York Times to rewrite that article. There's been a lot of engines. There's one that took in all of George Carlin's bits. Right. And now you can go to it and say, tell me a George Carlin joke. And it tells you a George Carlin joke in his voice. Why is George Carlin not? Now they've settled that case. But actually, Sarah Silverman has a suit right now because you can go into an engine and say, tell me a Sarah Silverman joke about this. And it will make up a joke based on Sarah Silverman. So it's like, you can't do that without her work. Why is she not getting compensated for it? That is the central issue.
Right.
Wow, that's crazy. That's cool. But you know what I've been seeing lately and things like this, and I'm sure you may have as well, but like you'll be on Instagram or Facebook, some sort of a social media, and it'll be an ad for something. And you'll see like a newscaster from like Fox News, and you can tell, or it'll even be someone famous like Dan Rather, but you can tell that the AI is producing what he's saying, and it'll be some BS story about like hair growth or something like that. And you're like, I know that's not Dan Rather telling. Now, why isn't Dan Rather suing these people?
I'm sure he is. Yeah. I mean, it is, and I think this is actually a central issue, this is a central issue for our society is how do we know what's real and what's not?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Especially when you hear the voice. I mean, you hear these voices and it sounds just like Morgan Freeman, and you'll hear in this thing, and you're listening, you're like, that's Morgan Freeman's voice because it really was his voice that was put into a computer against his, knowledge maybe, but it was put in there. And now it sounds just like Morgan Freeman. So why hire Morgan Freeman and pay, $25,000 to have him voice your voicemail for your company when you can just grab this and he'll probably never know about it? I mean, it's frustrating. Being a voice actor, thinking that someone could be doing that with my stuff or with things that Darren has shot. All the different productions he's done over the years, and he's got this great shot of Denver. And someone grabs that off the internet and dumps it into AI, changes a few trees, and it's their work all of a sudden.
That is the problem.
It's true. Yeah, exactly. It happens. Or sometimes conversely, you can do Morgan Freeman and like a sort of comedic way, just like kind of how was it Morgan Freeman that you just referenced? Anyway, you did an imitation, and that can get into those weird parody laws. I did some stuff for South Park a few years ago and others where I know those parody laws allow such a great swath of flexibility. Why don't you walk us through
it? It is, yeah. Parody there's a good gray area. There's a parody is an exception to copyright protection, right? You've probably heard of fair use, right? Because as I said earlier, since copyright says that only the copyright owner can use that copyright, but if someone else wants to use the copyright, there's an exception for certain situations. And it's a little complicated about when the use is fair, when you can use someone else's copyright. And parody is one of those exceptions, essentially. But there are guidelines for what is considered parody and what is actually.
I remember doing a Blockbuster commercial where they wanted me to do the Beavis and Butthead voices, and I'm like going, hey, Beavis, this Blockbuster is pretty cool. And yeah, it's cool. But it's saying that, was I doing a parody of that, or was I imitating him where Mike Judge should have been paid for that? That's.
What are you talking about, as much?
What's that?
Yeah.
What are you talking about, as much? Sorry, I had to digress with Butthead. No, you go ahead, talk. I'm sorry. You asked a question.
Parody is what the Supreme Court has told us is parody is basically is making fun of something, right? Is basically or social commentary on that thing, and that's what. So parody is not just something that is funny; it has to be making fun of it or making a commentary on it.
Oh, there's a little fine line there.
It's an important line. It's a very important line. The famous case is the Supreme Court case is Two Live Crew did a remake of Roy Orbison's Pretty Woman. This is back in the 80s.
Right.
And 80s. And so Roy Orbison's publisher sued saying Two Live Crew is using Roy Orbison's Pretty Woman without permission. But what the Two Live Crew version is actually about, if you listen to Pretty Woman, people think of it as a romantic song. People their first dance at their wedding. It's actually about a prostitute. That's what Pretty Woman's about, right? The original. And so when Two Live Crew redid it, they called that out. They basically said this, and they redid the words, making fun of the original.
Pretty ho, walking on the floor. It's like no, but I even heard another one which was crazy. The song, Vanilla Ice, doom, 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 doom,
Sure.
and that's this very opening of a Queen song, Under Pressure, doom, 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 doom. It's in a little different key, but it's so obvious it's the same song. But Vanilla Ice won that lawsuit, and I was blown away because I'm like, that is the starting of Under Pressure it was David Bowie and Queen, actually, that song. But
I hear those suits are happening all the time.
But the thing is that this is exactly what I'm saying. This is why we have lawyers,
right?
Because there is, how do we decide these things, right? And unfortunately, deciding copyright infringement issues is it's hard to be objective, right? Yeah. There's a more recent famous case was a Blurred Lines case with Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams and Marvin Gaye's song, right? And there's a lot in the copyright world. There's a lot of conflict about that ruling because that was found to be an infringement. And even though the jury was not actually allowed to hear the music.
Why?
Yeah. So it's way more complicated than you want me to get into. But the point is that there's a lot that when I've taught copyright at the law school, at University of Denver Law School. And when I've taught the fair use section, right, we look at all these different cases. Is this a fair use or is this not a fair use? And it's really hard to predict. And it's very frustrating, understandably frustrating for the students because it's very subjective.
And so I've gone through different documentaries and other films I've done in the past. I would go through a copyright clearance firm. I remember having to give them a clip cue sheet. Everything that was used, visuals and audio, music. And, a lot of times I would try to go through the motions of trying to get a studio to allow me to use a clip of a movie. And they would deny it, of course, or make me or say, yeah, you can use this. It's $60,000 a second or whatever it was. Obviously, I couldn't afford to do it. And I was able to use it anyway because maybe the person that was being interviewed was talking specifically about this film or this scene. So I was able to use it behind that, but then I'd have to stretch it out just a little bit. And they're like, no, you got to shave it back, one more frame. And their whole purpose was I'd come to understand that basically they're not interested in what's really fair use. It's more about what is fair use that has been fought and won already in the courts so that you have precedent so that ultimately you could get E&O and sell your movie.
But that is what's fair use, right? If it's based on what the courts have said is fair use, that is what's fair use. That's the argument, right? Is that we have precedent saying this is fair use and we're going to rely on that precedent.
But in other cases, there are some people that may say like, oh no, this is fair use, but it's never been fought and won.
Sure, and we can have different guidance, and I think the point is, I think that the important lesson, I guess, that underlies your story is just that you have to clear rights, or you have to have a fair use argument to use those rights without clearance.
But a lot of things, it's funny because I wrote a screenplay about Cat Stevens, and it was wonderful. I got so close to the point where I was talking with his brother, his Yusuf Islam is his name now, but his brother, David Gordon, and I were on the phone for an hour. The next day, Cat Stevens' manager calls me up and says they want to meet you in New York to talk about your screenplay. But then all of a sudden they passed on it, didn't give me a reason why, but I was told, unless I have his publicity rights, then I can't do a biopic on him unless after he's dead. I mean, I can't make this Cat Stevens biopic without his publicity rights because he, as a live person, owns his own publicity rights. Is that fair, or am I off?
Sure, yeah. So especially famous people. Everyone has rights of publicity, and the rights of publicity for famous people are a little different. There is the interesting thing, and this kind of runs also into documentaries you're doing, Darren, is just that there is no protection over facts, right? So it's why you can make a documentary about someone without their permission, but there are lines you have to be careful of crossing about using someone's rights of publicity, and whether is a documentary about that person or is it about stories in that person's life or other people's lives.
Which my screenplay obviously was, a lot of the stuff was, made up, or at least, I used some artistic, license or whatever to kind of make, because obviously I wasn't in every one of those scenes. A couple of them came from interviews, so I had actual, real things that he said, but you just kind of made up the story a little bit. But obviously I was thinking if I have him, then I can really, he'll tell me, well, that's not exactly how it happened. And it might be something better, or they might say, well, poetic license, that's fine. That actually sounds cooler than what really happened. But you can't do that on your own unless, like you said, unless you have their publicity rights to change things and make up stories.
Also, when it comes to making a film about someone, your film is going to be much more successful if you have their consent, right? If they're on your side,
right?
If they're helping you promote the film, or at least they have the public knows it. I mean, you think about The Complete Unknown, right? The fact that we know that Dylan approved that film, because he's a very secretive person, he's very much not about that sort of thing. But if he approves a film, I think that helps the film, gives it more legitimacy for a lot of the public. Right, so they're going to want to have his buy-in when they're going to go invest in a production like that.
So when I ultimately thought that someone said, well, you could also make it about this guy who's writing a screenplay about Cat Stevens and finds out only that we can get his publicity rights if he's dead. So how can I kill Cat Stevens and make it into a comedy, which is not what I wanted to do.
What was that Nick Cage? What was that Nick Cage movie about? It's about the guy writing the movie.
Yes, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Some with the flowers out. Meryl Streep was in it too, but it was that guy. He had a twin brother in it. But he's a famous writer, and
Yeah.
but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's funny. How I killed Cat Stevens. It's like, no, dude, I don't want to do that. I love the guy.
Dave, thinking about that, especially being in film, television, when people go out to start a project, whether they're seasoned or fresh out of film school, what do you see as like the biggest mistakes, going into production? What are the biggest, say, obstacles that people come up against later because they weren't prepared so that they will have those proper legal deliverables?
Yeah, it does depend on the type of production, right? Documentary versus, something that is fictional. But I think so what I hear about, the obstacle they come up against is they go through the full production, then they go try and get E&O. And then they call me. It's like, well, I can't. So, because in E&O applications, you probably know you have to name, you have to certify that you had a clearance procedure and that you had a lawyer that was advising you on that clearance procedure. Well, if I haven't been involved in the whole production, I can't vouch for that, right? So the problem, and so I hate to say that, I hate to answer your question with hire a lawyer.
Here's my card.
But as the lawyer, this is the thing I hear about. Now, certainly, your editor is going to have a completely different answer. What you should do differently. What's the thing he would tell every director to do, but, as an editor, that he wants you to do differently. But as the lawyer, the problem that I have is, if I'm not involved from the beginning, I don't know if it was done right. And I'm not on set. I'm not saying if the filming was done right. I'm saying if the rights clearance, if we cleared all the rights properly. So then when it comes time to get the E&O, or to even do a distribution deal, right? We're going to have to represent and warrant. We have to promise that we have all the rights. I can't make that promise if I wasn't involved, and I don't know if that's happening.
And you can't just promise. You actually have to have copies of those signed releases.
Depending on who we're talking to, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And just beyond getting people's signatures to be on camera, there's a whole host of other things.
A lot more than that, because everything. The thing that a lot of people, I think, certainly more seasoned filmmakers are going to know this, but I think that one thing that skips a lot of people's minds is that it's not just the rights from the people who are on screen. It's everything that is in the shot, including the music. Here's another big one that comes, that I think is a pitfall, is when people say, "Oh, we'll do the music later." They leave the music for last. That is also going to be a problem, because first of all, the music's always more expensive than you thought it was going to be, right? And clearing it takes longer than you thought it would. And so music is big, but honestly, just like Tom, that there's artwork in the background of your shot right now, right? I have to clear that.
I actually did that one, but that's Matisse over there, so. That one I'm not paying for, but this one I know what you're saying. I mean, it could be something like you're driving down the street and there's two guys in a car and you're at a light and you see this donut shop in the background that plainly says Krispy Kreme donuts or whatever. They might not want to be affiliated with your film. So you have to go in there and get a signature from them.
It depends on how, I presume anyway, it depends on how that shot is set up. Because if that's really focused on it, it's very different from being incidental and kind of blurred. And,
the other thing is whether the Krispy Kreme
and the
example,
content.
The Krispy Kreme example is more likely a trademark example, because trademark is the type of intellectual property that protects brands, logos, things that represent a product or a service, which is different than the artwork that we're pointing out in Tom's frame, or the music that is in the audio, because the music or that artwork is protected by copyright. The trademark is a different type of protection, which requires a different type of clearance, Darren, to your point, depending on how it's used.
Yeah, and then with music, not just licensing, getting the permission, from I know the person that wrote this, because there's two sides in the music too. So if you don't mind talking about that, and most favored nations, I believe it's called.
That's part of it too. So, very generally, right? Whenever we're going to include music in any sort of video, whether it's film or television, video games, anything where the music is synchronized with a moving image. So if I start playing music on my phone on our talk right now, it's synchronized with our moving image. That requires a synchronization license to synchronize the music with a moving image. One of the tricky things about music rights is that while copyright is very confusing, in music it's twice as confusing because there's two copyrights in every song you hear. There's a copyright in the composition, the words in music, what's written down. There's a completely separate copyright in the sound recording of that composition. So Darren, to your point, if we are going to use someone's music, we need rights from the songwriter, the person who owns the composition rights. So that may be the composer, the songwriter, or their publishing company. And we also need the rights from the recording artist, which also that could be owned by the record label. So you're syncing both sides. To your point, both sides have to be synced. You have to get sync licenses for both of those copyrights. The MFN is the most favored nation, which is basically one side saying, I need to be just as favored as everybody else. So if you pay one side this much, and there's an MFN clause in there, and you pay the other side more, you're going to have to pay the MFN side the same amount. So MFN does come into sync license as well as a lot of other things we negotiate, but sync licenses are always more expensive than people think they will be.
I have a question. I just thought
Such
of
a pain. Such a pain.
Darren and I were talking before you came on about like Indiana basketball and things like that. Well, you'll be watching an Indiana game, and the band might be like, dun, 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 that Jack White song or whatever. And the crowd's going, oh. Now, they're allowed to play. Are they allowed to play that? Or do they do some publishing thing at the starting of the season saying that our band wants to do certain songs, da, 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 hey.
They license it for performance, don't they?
Well, so this is a different type of licensing, right? So I think the license Darren's referring to, there's something called a performing rights license. If you've ever heard of ASCAP and BMI, these are performing rights. I'm a member of
ASCAP, absolutely.
Okay, so right, and so the reason you're a member of ASCAP is because if your voice or anything that you create is performed, and perform doesn't mean just live perform, but when it's just played over a speaker anywhere, that music that is the use of a copyright in that music or in that in whatever that copyrighted work is, and therefore there's a royalty collected for the use of that music. So when any music is played, so yes, when there's a broadcast, right, those broadcasters have a license from these performing rights organizations. ASCAP and BMI are two of the performing rights organizations, and so they have to. Basically, the broadcaster gets a license that allows them to perform this music as part of the broadcast.
But it's probably more of a blanket thing, though.
It is a blanket license, right. Exactly. But it is also important to keep in mind because anytime you hear music playing out of a speaker, anywhere, there is a performance going on. So if you're in an elevator listening, there's a Muzak playing. That is a public performance. If you are in a bar and the music is playing over a loudspeaker, not live, just the radio is playing, it is a public performance. So any place, bars and restaurants and health clubs and all these places that have music playing have to have these performing licenses, these ASCAP and BMI licenses. And a lot of business owners aren't aware of this for good reason. This is not, if I own a retail shop, I'm not thinking about paying for music licensing. I'm just thinking I want my customers to have music in the background. But then ASCAP and BMI, and there's actually 4 performing rights organizations, will come knocking and say, hey, you have music playing in your store. You need to have a license to have that music playing.
Wow.
So and the thing that's interesting,
exactly.
The thing that's interesting to me is that this all comes back to copyrights. All comes back to the ownership in a creative work. When you write a piece of music, you own the copyright. Once that music gets out in the world, if it's being played in some clothing shop you get a license. Someone's using your copyright. You need a license. You need to get paid for that. And this happens with the film, with any film we make, with any art we draw, with any book we write or poem we write. All this stuff is protected by copyright.
Okay, what about this? Now I'm getting real technical. You walk into 7-Eleven or something like that, and the guy's got a jam box behind the counter that he's listening to his own music, but you can kind of hear it when you're up at the counter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
gotta have a license. Now, I don't think the guy working the counter has the license. 7-Eleven has to have the license.
Right, right.
But yeah, I mean, it is being broadcast. It is music. By the way, even so, you pull up a song on your phone,
Right.
okay? Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, whatever it is, they have a PRO license. They
Right.
also have a license because they're performing music through that app.
Wow. That's why we need people like you to make sure that the artists are protected.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you just did my advertisement right there. I'm going to capture that. I'll pay you a royalty, and that's going on my YouTube.
And I
I
can
want
voice
that in
so
writing.
Darren can shoot it. I'll voice it. We got a commercial here.
Yeah, right.
Not a
Exactly.
commercial.
How do people find you?
CreativeLawNetwork.com.
Just want to make sure we get that
Network.
in there. Okay.
I appreciate it.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
have a quick question. Just shifting gears a little bit with what's going on with Colorado and Sundance. What does that look like for Colorado? Are you part of the movement with things going on? What is the forecast of how that's going to change the industry in Colorado?
It certainly depends on who you talk to, right? I mean, I think it's a huge get for Colorado. I think it's fantastic. I won't take credit for having, for making it happen, but certainly, know a lot of people who worked hard to get that done. And I think it's a great thing for our state. I think that we obviously are not a mecca for film production. Now, neither was Utah. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but I certainly hope what I think everyone kind of in the creative industries and certainly in film and video production here in Colorado is hoping is that it does bring more production here. We do have some of the best locations as far as outdoor locations go, obviously, but also there's, as you guys know, there's so much industry behind every production. Right. Everything, I mean, whether it's craft services or whatever crew member we're talking about, so much of that really helps run an industry. And hopefully this does bring, shine a light here and bring more attention here. I think it's great for Colorado to have the notoriety and for people to visit. I think the other thing is you're going to bring all the people of Sundance to Colorado and they're going to see everything we've got going on here. I think that helps a lot. But I think the challenge right now for Colorado's creative industries and certainly our film and television industries is to capitalize on this, to make it so that we're not just having a whole bunch of people from LA show up for 2 weeks and leave, but it actually really supports.
Yeah, 300 days of sunshine a year. I mean, you can shoot in the city, shoot out in the country, shoot in the mountains. The only thing we don't have is an ocean, but you would be shooting that in LA anyway if you were doing a film.
Well, to Dave's point, the thing that I think Colorado needs is to build up a bigger labor pool that supports that industry.
Right.
As well as all the services like prop houses and so forth that help provide those things that kind of keep it running. But with things like Sundance and tax incentives, which we could always do better on, and other ways of supporting through grants and other incentives, there could be some good movement. Is there anything that you feel like Colorado could be doing better, or other states that attract? I know LA has got a lot of issues because people are going elsewhere. The industry,
New Mexico,
shopping it around, going to Canada or the different states. What is it besides giving just standard competitive tax incentives that would be good in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's tough because we've got a bit of a chicken and egg problem, right? It's like if we had more productions, then we'd have more staff and crew, right? We'd have more resources, but we aren't going to get the productions unless we have those resources. And I think that's kind of part of the problem. So I think it does take that investment, and it does take really people focusing on supporting the industry here and keeping the business here. And I think you have, that includes, to the extent we have filmmakers here or people who are involved in production here, making that sacrifice to keep it here, right? That is something that I think supports everybody. And it's hard because ultimately it's the bottom line, right? This is something that happens in every industry, or we're seeing increasingly in every industry, is that people are making decisions based on dollars and not on something else. They're making decisions based on dollars, right? And so I think that is something we have to keep in mind, is how do we make it financially viable, as well as kind of keeping that the other side of it is why it's good for the state on our reputation and on what, on supporting the whole community that we've got here.
Yeah. That's so cool, though. It would be great. I mean, I'm bummed because I'm moving, but one of the reasons when I first moved here, I was thinking, being an actor, that hopefully more stuff would come here. And, you think what it would have done to like New Mexico. I mean, New Mexico has become one of the, film capitals, because they have good locations, they have decent, really good weather, similar weather, and just too bad that wasn't Colorado, that instead of New Mexico.
Well, what you're planning on is you're planning on everything just moving to Indiana.
Everything's going to Bloomington.
Right,
Every
right.
film
Exactly.
will be shot there.
You're going to where you're skating to where the puck is going, not where it is. That's your plan. That's it.
It's so funny that you guys mentioned Utah, and Sundance and stuff. It's like the New Orleans Jazz basketball team moves to Utah. It's the Utah Jazz. These people have no idea what jazz music probably even is. And then you've got this little festival, that became huge. So they think, oh, yeah, jazz in Utah and film in Utah. It's like, no creativity hardly there at all. And we kid the people in Utah watching today. Thank you.
Look, I mean,
to help us
the LA Lakers aren't there because there's lakes in LA. Right.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of sports teams we can talk. I know you guys were talking about the Rockies before, and your Tigers and everything. So we've got a lot of teams have moved around a lot. So that's just
true.
Kind of part of that.
That's true.
Part of that whole industry as well.
Yeah, love that. Is there anything else that people should know about you, your firm, your team, or trends in law? Anything?
I appreciate you asking me. I think one of the things I was talking about when you asked me originally, like how I got into this, it's from the music industry. But today we're talking about the film industry. And what I realized coming out of law school is how moments ago I was saying how it's all about copyright. Right. And so these same things apply, whether it is visual art or graphic design or music or television or film or literature. All these things are creative works and all these things are copyrights. And that's all the stuff that I love to work with. It's just fun for me. I mean, these are just, it's really exciting stuff. And the legal principles are the same. Right? The things that we're doing there's a lot of these same. So this is why our firm is able to do work in so many different creative industries, is because it's all copyright. It's all contract, right? It's all business around these creative works. And that, I think, is really the focus of what we do. There's a lot more about that on our website, but the fact is that's like what we love to talk about, what we love to do every day. And so these conversations I'm having with you guys is so much fun, because this is really where the rubber meets the road, and that, yeah, I can talk about the details in a contract, and that my job is to read and deal with all that legal mumbo jumbo. But where the rubber meets the road is we're making a film, and it's really fun and exciting.
Well, we said it before that you're serving creatives, but I don't want to dismiss how creative your work is too, because I know from my own experience, there's been some times where I've had a co-production deal or something that I've shown you, and it's like, it's a little bit different. I'm trying to do it this way. There's this equity share here and points, and you're like, okay, let's back up. What's the big picture? What are we trying to do here? And then I show you like my version of a contract that I've written up just to try to just make it work. And you're like, okay, close.
Yeah.
But not quite.
Well, but it's just because.
Why don't we reword it this way?
And I see this stuff every day.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's really the thing about it is that I've seen these same contracts I've seen so many times, right, that we know where to pick and where we can make changes and where we can make it better for you. Because ultimately a contract is going to be drafted on one side or the other. Right? Contracts aren't inherently neutral. They're in one side's favor or in someone else's favor. So a lot of times my job is to represent my client and make it more in their favor and get them a better deal. And it actually also relates to our conversation about AI before, because I certainly have plenty of people who said, oh, well, I'm just going to go have ChatGPT write my contract. And the problem is ChatGPT doesn't, first of all, understand nuance and understand the industry, but doesn't have the experience of this is where the tweaks need to be made, and having that understanding, that personal aspect of it. It has its place. And look, we use AI at our firm. I'm not saying, I'm not anti-AI. It's just that it's that experience. In the same way, when you get behind the camera, you know how to frame that shot, right? Or whatever example we want to use, right? It's like there's things that that just take that experience because you've done it before,
right,
and you know how to fit it all in perspective.
Yeah, it's just another tool, but you have to be able to use it, properly, and it takes people to be able to use it as a tool.
This has been great. I mean, you really bring a wealth of knowledge to our audience, and certainly things that people don't really realize how much a person like you and your expertise goes into everything from running a little coffee shop that has a stereo playing or filming a major motion picture. I mean, these are things where you really do have to make sure you're doing them the correct legal way so you can avoid big lawsuits down the road. And if they do have a lawsuit, you represent them and you take it for twice as much money.
And just for our audience, just to clarify, we're talking about a lot of film and television and voiceover work and related, but it goes way beyond that. Like you said before, it's literary works. I'm sure you represent influencers and all sorts of creatives and artists, graphic designers or whatever. Any of those, everything needs that sort of protection and understanding at that deeper level where you could protect yourselves, protect your work, and protect your clients too.
Exactly. And I'm just a member of the team, right? Every production, like you said, in any of those genres or in any of those pursuits, it's all different members of the team. And just like I'm not the one behind the camera, I'm not the one on stage with the guitar. Everyone has their place. Everyone has their role. Right. My role is, to protect my clients and make sure all the paperwork is in order and we're getting the best deal possible.
Well, when the Tom and D Pod show goes huge, we like to at least get you on retainer or something, even if it's just like $10, just so we can say, look, don't talk to the hand. No, talk to this guy. It's like.
Actually, here's one thing I will say, Tom, because I appreciate, because here's one of the major obstacles, and this is very transparent. I told you I went to law school because my artists need a lawyer, right? And one of the biggest problems, the biggest obstacle with having a lawyer is the cost. No doubt about it, right? We all know how much that lawyers, and a lot of things in life can be expensive, and lawyers are one of them, right? And I think that a couple things about that I think are worth mentioning. One is that it's about finding the right lawyer who's at the right price for you, right? I mean, just like you're hiring a service provider, right? It should be someone that you like to work with, that you have confidence in, you think can do the job well, and the part of that conversation, if you're thinking about hiring a lawyer, is how do you bill for things? Right? What is this going to cost me? Because I think, like, from our firm's perspective, billing always has to be super transparent, right? There's no surprises, and we try to set expectations about what's.
Yeah, you called me and then put me on hold for 10 minutes, and you're charging me.
Definitely not getting a bill for that. Lawyers get a bad reputation for a good reason. Right. I understand that, and that's why I came to it and tried to. That's why I started my own firm, is so I could do it differently. Yeah. The other thing I'll mention, though, is that there are, for the kind of up and coming, the new filmmakers out there, the kind of new artists that may be listening here, a lot of states have a volunteer lawyers for the arts organization. So in Colorado, ours is called Colorado Attorneys for the Arts. And these are organizations that are in about 20, 24, 25 states that provide pro bono legal services for in-need artists and creatives. So pro bono means free, right? And so if you can't afford a lawyer, then there are these volunteer lawyers for the arts organizations that can try and help you find a lawyer who will help you for a free or a discounted rate. Yeah. So we never want the price to be the barrier to getting that representation that you need. And so if, for the people who are listening, if you feel like, oh, well, talk to a lawyer, see if you can afford it. But if you can't, look for a volunteer lawyers for the arts organization, because that might be another bridge to getting the representation you need.
Great idea.
Great to know. That's great to know. Yeah.
Well, man, it's been so much fun talking with you, and we would love to have you on again sometime if you'd like to join us.
I'm not going anywhere.
Good. Neither are we, hopefully.
Great. Well, Dave, thank you so much. That was so awesome. I really, really appreciate your time. And we will talk to you soon. Yeah, that was awesome.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah, definitely.
And I might sue you, and then so he would represent both of us. I might just, I might sue myself. I really want to clean myself out, just.
Mission accomplished. No, Matt, Dave, he has helped me so many times. He's just so thorough. And one of the things that he talked about was cost. And I want to say, it's so costly if you don't have a good attorney representing you and giving you good guidance. Because that's what it is. It's guidance to make sure, that you don't get yourself into trouble. And there's all sorts of levels that you have to be concerned about. So
absolutely. Plus, he just seems like a great guy. I mean, people say, "Oh, you can't trust a lawyer." I mean, I would trust the guy just because
Who says that? I've never heard that. What the?
Well, that's because I use the strong arm, the drunk guy.
Oh, all right, my friend.
It's been another fun episode. Looking forward to the next.
So fun. And yeah, thanks again, as always, Tom. And how do we finish this out? Later, dude.
Later, dude.
Copyright 2025. Later, dude. TM.
Tom and Dee.
Two middle-aged idiots.